Alright guys, welcome to Red's Resort. Today, we're going to be looking at the most anticipated features coming in 2026. Or at least that's the question that I put to the Discord. But inevitably, you'll notice as we go down through this list, that it strays from the most anticipated features actually coming in 2026 into just a general wish list of things we'd like to see added in the game in the next 12 months. Which is fine. It serves as a nice compass to point out the areas in the game where people feel like there's some work needing done or a little update or some polish, so I just kind of rolled with it and didn't keep things too strict. These aren't in any order whatsoever. I'm just going to read them straight off the Discord, have a little chat about them as we go, and you can feel free to chip in with your opinions and your desires in the comments below. First one mentioned was lamp for all ships. That's a pretty obvious one. The lamp system in the game right now is absolutely awesome. I don't think I've really heard a bad word about it so far. People are liking the fact that there's other colours and things like that. Obviously using it in bright situations is a bad idea, but apart from that, the sooner this gets added to all the ships in the game, the better. Pretty straightforward. More gold standard ships. Now, we've just seen some excellent work done on the Aurora there, and I'm pretty sure you can think of quite a few other ships that are really needing an update. For me, personally, I would like to see the Connies next. And please, for the love of God, don't start nerfing any guns or anything crazy like that. We don't want a Mark 5 or a Mark 6, whatever it is we're on. Well, maybe some of us do. But don't downgun the old Connies if you're making new Connies. You touch people's Connies and, you know, there'll be problems. So CIG, just work your magic, bring them all up to scratch. It would honestly be one of the most exciting features this year, to me, if you were to upgrade those Connies. The Avenger series as well, really desperately needing a bit of a nip and tuck, especially in that cockpit. Get all its components in there, get it up to speed. And there'll be a few others in there. Somebody in the comments is already typing out 600i, for example. And that's fine, just make a list. Let me know the ship you'd like to see gold standard the most, and we can try and work out what's the most desired rework from the community. But CIG is already working on RSI, so I think that would be an easy win for them right now. So hopefully. There's big ticket stuff as well that the odds are on we're definitely going to see. Crafting, for example, is looking like it's going to show its face very soon. Making your own armour and guns and things like that, that's the obvious one. Sure. And if we can do that, then there might be the opportunity to start trading those manufactured goods for either other commodities or money. Hopefully the majority of that will stay within the in-game economy and not drift out into real money sort of territory. But you know how it is. But it's the other implications of crafting that really I'm most excited about. Exploration, for one. Tracking down the resources, tracking down the different qualities of resources within the game is going to have a massive impact on just, you know, your overall approach to the game day to day. I like just going from place to place and collecting stuff and hoarding it all up. If there's a little bit of adventure happens along the way, that's even better. And then you've got the implications of using those different quality commodities to actually craft the items, such as armour being better at certain things, guns being better in certain ways, faster fire rates, less recoil, etc. And it really opens up the playing field, making the game just instantly feel more diverse and interesting in a lot of different ways. And when you scale that up to things like components and even ships, like that's just a whole world to get lost in. Hunting for resources, trying to craft the best stuff imaginable, and using that stuff to go and hunt for even better resources. You can already see how people are just going to be completely lost to those loops in the game, like gone. And then you add to that the hunting for blueprints and stuff as well. How's that going to work out? Will they all be tied to specific missions and things like that? Will some of them just unlock naturally as you play through the game? Some might unlock for just crafting certain tier items. Some might unlock after salvaging X amount of material. Killing 50 NPCs. Could be anything, really. But I'm guessing a lot of them will be mission based. And CIG right now doesn't have the mission portfolio to facilitate thousands of blueprints. Obviously some of them will be faction tied as well, but even then they are going to have to come up with a lot of ways we can get our hands on these blueprints. So it's going to be cool. I'm really looking forward to it. And tied in with that is the next thing on our list, and that's the new planet tech. And what we seen at SetCon was just absolutely blinding. In particular, the emphasis on biomes and the materials that might spawn in there. could be animals, could be plants, fungus, minables, it could be salvaging from other dead ships, specific kinds of dead ships, maybe some materials you'll only really find in Origin builds and things like that. When you seen that footage of those grassy plains and there was just those new rocks sitting there, the mineable ones, the ones that looked like they were filled with copper and stuff, that's what really piqued my interest. Exploring planet side to find rare rocks and minerals and plants and stuff, that sounds epic, I'm not gonna lie. And it'll take that exploration brought in by crafting to a whole new level, hopefully, anyway. And I know a lot of the time what they say and what we actually get can be quite different. Remember the rivers and stuff like that, but when you see some of them, they're like 20 feet in the air and flickering and they look rubbish and have a whole bunch of other issues going on. But for all we know, the actual implementation of the new planet tech is maybe a way to get around some of those limitations and around some of those bugs that keep occurring. Hopefully anyway. But the idea of all these little pocket biomes everywhere and the natural spawning algorithm for flora and fauna and even rocks and rubble and cliffs and everything, it all just sounds absolutely amazing on paper. And what we did see was really impressive. Tie that into the weather system and it's just gonna be possibly one of the most beautiful experiences in gaming history. Right up until a space cow starts moonwalking or flying or something, you know, we know what's going to happen. Anyway, the next one is the inventory rework. Now, I don't really need to say too much about this. By now, we've all seen what the concept for this is supposed to look like. I was very happy with the concept. It seemed like there was a lot of information there, but it all seemed pretty clear, pretty understandable, and pretty accessible. So I was completely happy with it. The only thing I can see going wrong is we get the inventory rework, but there's still the delay, still the lag, and at that point I think everything will just break down again. But they have specifically said, and I know they say a lot of things, that bringing down that interaction delay is a primary focus. So hopefully that means they've got some really good ideas on how to accomplish that. And if they do, then hopefully they can implement those ideas in other parts of the game, like picking stuff off the floor, changing weapons, etc, etc. The next biggest item on the list was social features. As we all know, a lot of the features that you can find for interacting with other players through your mobi-glass or otherwise are pretty limited right now and are in dire need of becoming far more robust. But we did see some positive news at a recent CitizenCon that hopes to bring that up to standard of a minimally viable MMO. And this had things like player names with online status, a note field, current location, and party lists showing where members are and who the leader is, and even show you which ship they might be in and which exact console they might be sitting at. There was block lists and even a kill on sight list that we can maintain for ourselves. A way to find parties where you can advertise what you're looking to do or just browse the listings, including where to meet up, what mission they're doing if any, how many players they're looking for, how many players have already signed up, and how many slots are left. The main chat window was also getting an upgrade to have tabs, filters and linkable text. Player names, items, contracts and locations can be linked in and will provide waypoints on the map. Hopefully VoIP will eventually work. Hailing other players, a ton more features for orgs so that those guys can be more organised and have more control. A shared org or party inventory would also be a massive addition to the game. In relation to that, there's a few things in the game that we're all just used to but probably should be persistent, such as missions themselves. If you're doing hauling or something like that and you're loading up tons upon tons of resources and then something happens and you come back in, it's just a nightmare for that mission not to persist. And that should also go for map markers as well. Custom, persistent, shareable map markers that work everywhere, including in the middle of space and on planet surfaces. It seems like basic things, but yeah, there's probably a lot of things that I've missed there. Oh, a marketplace for trading with other players. That seems essential at this point, especially with crafting coming in. Next up was obviously base building, and these are the obvious ones. Before we go off into La La Land and Crazy Town, like expecting 60 FPS in cities, for example. Let's just try and be real here, people. Base building is another one of those things that on the surface is a place to store your stuff, maybe interact with friends, but as soon as you lay it down and start looking at it, it morphs into this massive, complex, dynamic asset to the game that's just going to touch and change everything. And I don't even know if we've got enough time to do a full deep dive on base building. I would like that to be a separate video, so watch out for that. It's going to be called Lost the Plot. But right off the bat, you've got your obvious stuff like mining, refining, fabrication, item and commodity storage, building a hangar, all the usual base stuff that we pretty much know already. And that's all cool and going to be epic, obviously. But there's littler things, like prospecting, which feeds into exploration, guys whose sole purpose is to go out and find areas rich in certain resources and sell that information on to other players. Or perhaps it's not even prospecting, maybe it's just property development, finding nice locations, or defensible locations. And then you'll have the guys who just want to go out and craft bases for other people. And there's even smaller aspects as well that I'm quite excited about. They mentioned that when bases come along, you will finally be able to lock items into place so that they can't get stolen, and only other members of your party or people with certain authorization can pick them up and move them around. And it's just one of those little things that make me go, oh my god, please. Just being able to put down a plant pot and it freaking stay there, I would take that and hail it as a gift from the gods. And on top of that, you have the more far-flung type of stuff, like the ranching, for example, and being able to texture and use decals and maybe build yourself a little camel base out in the woods for a hunting lodge. Yeah, absolutely epic. And I'm definitely skimming over a lot there. I could talk about that for hours, and I will at some point, because I've got a funny feeling it's coming a lot sooner than we thought. As soon as crafting is in and settled, I think they're just going to hit us with it. So hopefully at least sometime this year. So the most upvoted thing on the whole Discord list that we made was this one. These are just some smaller things that made it into this wish list for 2026. Choosing whether to dock or land in a hangar. That is apparently top priority by most of my Discord, a link to which you can find in the description if you're looking for like-minded individuals. Dynamic meshing got a mention as well, and it's been a long time since we heard anything on that front, so a little update on how that's coming along would be great actually. Suit lockers. When suit lockers, CIG? I feel like we took a step with getting physicalized helmets, and I did notice quite a subtle shift in the locker design on the Hermes. I could just be making this up, but it looked like it had 2 feet pads and it seemed to be wider, so possibly they're looking at it, but that could just be wishful thinking. I don't know how many ships they would need to rejig to get that to work. Hopefully they'll have had plenty of foresight though, because that is what they're known best for. Somebody mentioned personal apartments, and we were talking about this the other day. Somebody had made a mock-up of what Crusader apartments might look like, and we figured they might make it into the game sometime after base building, so possibly squeezed into 2026. Possibly not though. But when you think about all those hotels that you spawn in, providing some paid for accommodation to citizens who don't have their own bases sounds mostly like an academic database kind of issue, because the habs are built for the most part. CIG would just need a way to maybe make them instanced perhaps. Sounds complicated. Squadron 42! It would be good to see Squadron 42 in 2026. That would be a real cherry on the cake. If that came out just in time for Santa Claus. Here guys, sorry crafting's borked. Sorry base building doesn't work. There's a whole single player campaign for you to play over the holidays. I wonder if they'll do any testing and who they'll invite to do that testing. You would think it would be Evil Kai, right? Because they're definitely going to thoroughly QA that game. They're going to QA that game right into the ground. Thoroughly, right? Obviously, a big bunch of ships got brought into the discussion. The Railing might be 2026. It also might not be though, depending on how long it takes. The Ironclad, the Galaxy, the Liberator. Somebody was wanting a gold standard for the Reclaimer, which is fair enough. I second that actually. To me, the most important one that needs to get added to the game is the freaking Street Sweeper. Let's be serious. In fact, a whole janitor career path. Make the bins work. In fact, just clearing up junk in general needs a whole uplift. The SRVs need some attention. We want space tow truck missions. Go rescue a disabled ship and tow it home. If I have 3 SRVs, we should be able to jump with an Idris. Just little things, you know, little things. It's not like it'll melt down a server somewhere or that. while we're on stuff that's never going to happen, we've got to throw in Burger Van, right? I mean, people keep saying it for a laugh. Haha, that would be funny. But it just keeps coming up. It keeps coming up and coming up. And I think it's time somebody said, with a straight face, we want a fucking Burger Van. We've seen the Nutrient Crafter. We want a Burger Van. Make it happen. We seen the Anvil Barista the other day. Just make it exist. A lot of people think it's pointless, but there's a lot of pointless ships, dude. What's a few more pointless ships? Medical gameplay. That would be good. Go to location, rescue NPC, just make up some missions, get the medical beacons working perfectly, step up that whole medical system so it is a bit more nuanced. Get the primary weapon medical gun into the game that attaches to the MedLife canister backpack. That's what we need. Yeah, I feel like medical could be fleshed out without too much development effort, to be honest. Remember those guys that used to spawn in the caves? It was like find a missing person. Bring that back. Just tractor the guy out, stick him on a medical bed, heal him, and then... well, I don't know what happens after that. Maybe that's the problem. Just kick him back out in the middle of a desert moon. I think the problem is, I think we need a system like what we'll probably have for capturing bounties. It needs to be some sort of stasis system, at least for the time being, so that we can transit alive people around. That would be another good one for this list actually. The bounty system getting upgraded to capturing live targets. Knocking them out, sticking them in a stasis pod, transporting them to a detention facility. That's the only way I can see the medical gameplay and the bounty capture gameplay playing out, is with stasis pods. Because when I try and imagine NPCs lining up in a hangar and walking aboard your ship and sitting down to go on guided tours, I just really struggle to see how CIG is going to pull that off. I don't know if that was the plan, but they have made all these luxury tourist type ships. And I doubt they put the dining room in the 890 jump for you to set a bunch of stasis pods around. But I have zero faith in the NPC AI in this game ever being a stable performing entity. I'm just saying. Another couple of things I got to mention. Ray tracing was one of them, and that would be cool, but it would be a thing that you would probably just activate to take screenshots, and if I had a choice I would take 60 FPS in cities instead. Better physics was mentioned as well, mostly in relation to ground vehicles and things, but you know, just in general, the physics are pretty bad. They're getting better, slowly, but they are still not in a great place, I would say, and that's kind of a foundational thing, so the more that improves the better. And last of all, and most importantly, pizza. Where is the freaking pizza? This is the second time I've had to make this joke, and there's still no pizza. 2026 is going to be that year. It's coming. Maybe it's coming with crafting. Maybe you get to pick your own toppings, guys. Amiyoshi Plague and grilled rat hoagie wraps. Your food saturation to 200%. Although, they might want to get the toilets working in the game before they let us get crazy with the spices. Anyway, as I say, let me know all your ideas and wishes and hopes and dreams and nightmares below in the comments. I do read it all. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch my daft little videos. Hopefully, I'll see you again sometime. 07 guys.